And joining me now is the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, John McCain of Arizona. Senator McCain, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thanks, Chuck. Thanks for having me back.
I want to start with North Korea. President Trump just tweeted this morning. Why would I call China a currency manipulator when they are working with us on the North Korean problem? We will see what happens. Why does China's currency policy have anything to do with North Korea? Should it have anything to do with North Korea?
It may be part of the overall relationship, but China is the key. China is the key. They can stop this if they want to because of their control over the North Korean economy. And by the way, I would point out, and I know this will come up later on, but there are artillery on the border between North and South Korea that can reach Seoul. And we can't take them all out before. I mean, this is a very serious, this may be the first test of this presidency, but China can shut them down, and we should be, whether they're currency manipulators or not, we should expect them to act to prevent what could be a cataclysmic event. And the North Koreans keep making progress. They had a failure yesterday. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because of...
Do you buy the sabotage thing? Do you think our program's pretty good enough to do things like that?
I don't think so, but I wouldn't rule it out. But at the same time, they have made steady progress. While we have made agreement after agreement after agreement. Chuck, how many times on the show they said, oh, we have now a comprehensive agreement with North Korea. And so I'm not blaming Trump for this. I'm blaming Republican and Democrat presidents over the last 20 years while they've continued to make progress.
Is the carrot and stick approach with China worth doing? Is using our trade practices or these conversations about currency worth having these debates in order to influence them on North Korea?
To prevent North Korea from having a missile with a nuclear weapon that could strike the United States, and we would have to rely on our ability to intercept it, and by the way, I'm told that we do have that ability, is still awfully risky business. So this is really very serious. This guy in North Korea is not rational. As his father and his grandfather were much more rational than he is.
When you're dealing with an irrational actor, American presidents will always say with North Korea, the military option is on the table. But when you're dealing with an irrational actor, as you just described, does that make the military option actually something you don't want to deal with because you don't know how he's going to respond?
I think you never want to do that, again, because of this proximity of North Korean artillery to Seoul, a city of how many million people. So, but at the same time, to risk a situation where they have that ability and we rely on our ability to intercept, this could be the first test, real test of the Trump presidency. And by the way, I believe that he'll get very good advice from Mattis and from McMaster.
Let me move on, bigger picture here on what we've learned about President Trump and his foreign policy. In your hometown newspaper, the Arizona Republic, Robert Robb wrote this week. It was a completely, writing about the Syria decision, it was a completely ad hoc decision. It felt like the right thing to do, so Trump did it. And most Americans seem to agree that it was the right thing to do. My guess is that's the way foreign policy is going to be conducted under Trump. A series of ad hoc decisions based on what seems right or doable at the time. At the end of the day, to borrow from Winston Churchill, there will be no theme to the pudding. You think he's got it right?
I think he's got it partially right, but I also believe there's a difference between being a candidate and having the guy behind you with the codes. With the codes. The second is, I think that he is growing and he is listening to some very wise and intelligent people. And third of all, I think he was deeply moved at those pictures of those children. Who wasn't? Who wasn't deeply moved by that? But I do believe that we do not have, and I support what he did, and I support the bunker buster bomb, but we've got to develop a strategy. There is still not an overall strategy that he can come to Congress and his advisors and say, okay, this is how we're going to handle Syria. Here's how we're going to handle post-Mosul Iraq. Here's how we've got to have a strategy, and I'll give them some more time, but so far that strategy is not apparent.
It does seem as if even on the issue of whether Assad should go, President Trump, he sort of stopped short of it, of regime change. He said, look, he obviously isn't probably going to be a part of the solution, but he stopped short of that. Why?
because I don't think he's absolutely sure what he needs to do, but I would point out of those 400,000 men, women, and children been slaughtered, they weren't slaughtered by ISIS. They were slaughtered by Bashar Assad. The Russians are the ones that use precision weapons to hit hospitals in Aleppo. Look, the war crimes are horrendous here, and to just say we're only after ISIS, in my view, rather than regime change, is something that we have to rethink.
I want to talk about the overall changes. You said he's growing.
Yes.
In office. There are some that will say, no, the Washington establishment sucked him in.
I hope so.
Okay.
No, on national security, I do believe he has assembled a strong team, and I think very appropriately he's listening to them. And that's the area, of course, where I'm...
But I want to go to quickly on the Washington consensus. Not everybody thinks the Washington consensus on foreign policy has worked in the Middle East over the last 25 years.
And it hasn't. And you're right, it hasn't. But it wasn't because of the people that are around him now. In fact, if previous president... for 8 years, we basically did nothing in response to some of the most horrendous war crimes in history. At least he did something. Now I hope that there will be a strategy to follow that up. And look, America is about a moral superiority in our willingness not to fight every fight, but at least respond to horrendous acts of inhumanity and war crimes. And also, by the way, Syria will continue to have the spread of al-Qaeda if we don't take care of Bashar Assad.
All right. Senator John McCain, unfortunately I have to leave it there.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure, sir.
Thank you.
You've been on here a few times, so I've heard.
Time flies when you're having fun.
There you go.